My name is Tomi Kauppinen. I currently work, like you said, in Aalto University in Finland. But before that, I worked 2.5 years in Germany, in Münster. Some of you might even know it. Institute for Geoinformatics, quite famous about doing, well, about spatial information. And if you look at emergency information, it's exactly spatial information. So that's the background of my interest in doing these kind of things. I have quite a few different fields I'm applying, the different techniques I'm making research about. So my specialty is spatial information and especially spatio-temporal information. So anything that is changing somehow is in my list of interests. So I defended in Aalto University 2010 about modeling changes. So this is also related to changes in the emergency management field. All right, yeah, Twitter, web, if you want to have more information. My talk today is about linking, visualizing, and interacting about crisis data, about information, important information in a crisis setting. And if you think about it, it's amazing amount of things happen all the time on the earth. More or less, I mean, smaller or bigger emergency cases. The idea, of course, is somehow to help people in the emergency situations, like what happened last night, Boston Marathon. So this is an example of quite awful emergency situation. I mean, there were a bomb, and I just heard 3 persons were actually killed and over 100 injured. So it's a awful thing. Now the question in this kind of things is what can we do? I mean, what is exactly that computer scientists or visualization experts, natural language processing people, emergency managers, what can we do? So one thing is, of course, to try to understand different events. This is real time. This is connecting to Twitter, taking the hashtag Boston Marathon, and then looking at different kinds of other tags or other terms that appear in these tweets. So, I mean, it's really real time. I mean, I ran it like 5 minutes ago. So, as you can see, there are many things related to this event last night. So people are speculating whether this is somehow related to Iraq, or is this about terrorism? Is it really just explosion? What is the explosion? What is there a bomb creating the explosion? They are trying to find people. They are interested in whether there are some Finnish people or Belgian people or Spanish people. I mean, some people from their own family even. So we have to, I think these kind of visualizations, they help us to understand what people are, how people are actually discussing about the event. So families, people, marathon, terror, crazy. Well, obviously it's crazy. Perhaps it's related to Palestine, running, obviously, pray for Boston, explosions, thoughts, go for Boston, much wrong, daily attack. Obama must be doing something, hopefully. You see, one of the things that we could do, in addition to trying to understand visually, like what kind of things happening there, or what people are talking about in the social media, is to look at the actual tweets and try to somehow understand what they exactly are. Right. So first one, this is CNN breaking news. So obviously there is media reporting in the social media. So established authorities saying what exactly happened, when and where and why, perhaps even, and how. So one way to categorize tweets is to say who is doing it. Then you can look at interesting, quite important actually tweets in the social media saying that the authorities have shut down the whole cell phone service. in order to prevent anybody to remotely explode a bomb, right? So, very important message. So this gives the idea that, okay, perhaps in visualizations or this kind of fast reactions to the social media, we should be able to somehow track down this kind of messages, because I mean, it's if people are trying to find other people, like in this message, right? Finding people, if the cell phone network is down, then it's not that easy anymore to find people. So I raised this as a research question or research problem for natural language experts, natural language processing experts, to categorize automatically this kind of messages. So yes, another important thing is that people are finding people. So if we find out automatically this kind of tweets, perhaps we can then reply to these tweets immediately and say, well, yeah, we have seen all the runners of South Africa and they are all fine, right? So how can we help people in the information need is one of the clear questions we have from these kind of settings. Again, authorities are talking about the event. FBI says that they had no idea about it beforehand. Afterwards, I saw also some tweets saying that there are now some suspects. So, I mean, little by little, they actually have some ideas about the thing. Then crimes. Also in other cases, if you look at any earthquake, there are suddenly quite quickly a lot of relief organizations or organizations that say they are relief organizations wanting to have some funding. And so there might be fake Twitter accounts trying to get some funding for from people. So how do we analyze and find out those tweets or Twitter accounts automatically that are actually trying to do some crimes in this kind of setting? Again, finding people. Now, interesting thing here is that there is it's also about finding people, this tweet, but it's about the solution. So Google, as one of the first organizations to actually try to find a solution yesterday, provided a small application where you can say that, okay, I want to find certain people, or I want to inform about some people. For example, about me, that I'm all fine to my families. So you see, clearly one of the major category in yesterday's event was finding people, right? So as you can see, it's this is starting to be quite specific event. So it's a certain type of event, awful event, but we have certain quite specific categories for the tweets. And especially if you look at what people need, they need information about some people, whether they are okay or not, and also they want to communicate that they are themselves fine, or they want to get the reason for the attack, right? So, you know, this I see that these are the major categories if you look at the tweets for the yesterday's event. Or if you saw some suspicious, then call to a certain number. So reason and then finding people again, finding people. Privacy. Then now, if you think about finding people, fair enough, it's nice that we can find people. But what if there are some people injured and somebody takes a photo that might help to actually find that person, right, by relatives, but if that person is seriously injured and you send a photo of that person to Twitter, so it raises some issues about privacy. So this is commenting that whoever tweeted the photo of the poor man with his legs blown off should be ashamed of themselves, right? So it's about privacy. So we should be able to somehow perhaps even block these tweets. I don't know. Well, this is raising research questions. So this is my understanding what happened yesterday, and what is the categorization and small visualization I could do within evening hours after the dinner. Now let's look at something quite different. Let's look at Haiti earthquake. Haiti earthquake, what people are talking there. So they need also something. You remember in the case of Boston Marathon, they needed information about people. They needed information about reasons. Now let's look what Haiti people are saying. They are needing tents, food, water. They need milk, and so on. Let's look at them systematically. Haiti earthquake. So people send this kind of messages. This is done via Usahidi platform. So you remember yesterday Sarah's presentation. So people could send by SMS about their situation, the specific numbers in the Haiti, and then of course the idea is that now relief organizations can start reacting to this kind of information. Let's look at some examples. So what people say here. So they received some wounded people, they have no staff and no supplies, and then they even thank. They need help, they are sleeping outside, nobody thought about us. They need help, please bring for us food, water, shelter. We need help, our house was destroyed. So, who is the first one? What is the main difference between this one and then Boston Marathon?
These are SMSs,
Sorry?
these are texts, so they broke the mobile communications.
Yeah, well, that's one thing.
Here, there's no help within, I don't know, 100 kilometers.
Yeah.
In Boston, you can be there within 100 meters, probably.
Exactly, that's one big issue. Yeah.
Yeah, infrastructure is still intact.
Yeah, very good.
Infrastructures.
Yeah, very good. For example, here they say that the house was destroyed. I mean, so a lot of buildings actually collapsed completely. Roads were blocked. And one big difference I see here is that these people who sent the messages, they themselves actually need help, right? So in Boston Marathon, people who are sending tweets, they don't themselves exactly need, perhaps there are some exceptions, but I mean mostly they themselves don't need help. What they want to, where they want help, they want to find people in Boston Marathon, right? They want to have information about the reasons for such a bomb. While here, these people really need help. So there is a big difference between this kind of emergency cases. Both of them are really awful, right? But then, I mean, these need codes now. I mean, they need help exactly now. Medicine and food, if you look at them, a lot of these kind of messages. They give addresses as well. One of the problems here compared to Boston is that even if you know the address, I mean, it's 100 kilometers away. I mean, there's no way to go there, right? So, I mean, there are some ways, but yeah, but I mean, it might take time. So it's not like in Boston where you can just send ambulances in a few seconds or a few minutes. And similarly, we can analyze this kind of data. We can ask, okay, find help. What kind of help people need? Tents, food, or just say that they are in great need. They just want us to help them, but they don't say how. Or we can say, well, need help. People, let's put it that. Many people are sleeping here. Many people have died. Or we can add new terms like, let's add about buildings. Where was it again? Well, let's look at food again. So we start seeing things like food distribution here, right? So actually some categorization. So let's look at the Haiti case and start thinking what we could actually solve here. So this is the major setting compared again to Boston. It was extremely strong earthquake. Thousands of people were killed and millions of people were displaced. Now this is very important. So a lot of information was actually sent via this kind of SMS messages as I showed. Now at the same time the relief organizations that were in there didn't that much trust the information. So for example my student was there 9 months in Haiti before he did a master's thesis under my supervision. And he said that, well, I mean, they got these SMS messages and all the other messages all the time, but they couldn't simply trust it. So instead of just sending the troops where somebody said they need some shelter or food, they send a jeep to check the situation. And then the jeep came back after, I don't know, 1 day or something like that and said, yes, well, it's exactly like that, so they need shelter. So, so what can we do in these kind of things? Haiti earthquake, it's said to be the first major disaster where this amount of data was generated by the crowd. So it's anyway the first one where we can even try to do something, right? And now, of course, for the next emergency cases or disasters, we should think about how to make somehow automatically trust assessment, for example, about the data, what information we can actually trust. So, I mean, they simply didn't trust it, so they didn't use it. Another challenge was that relief organizations said that they cannot integrate the information together. So they get a lot of SMS messages, like I showed you, but I mean, how to get an overview? One way to get an overview is the visualization I showed. So just make a word cloud or some bubbles and to be able to organize somehow the information. But still, you are missing the categories. So it's still on at the term level, right? So you have terms like people need help and so on. But then, how do we find out, for example, that there are some building collapsed instead of just information about buildings? So, actual concepts, how do we find them, and how do we integrate the information coming from different sources? So the question is, what can we do? Now, this is another question. What about taking all the data and then starting to integrate it together, relating it to time, to spatial information, spatial locations, to events, to different categories, and by that being able to actually filter out the information. So what is needed for this kind of linking? So first of all, we need some technology. You can use whatever technology you want to use, but the point is that if you look at linked data technologies, they are quite established technologies for exactly this purpose. So for linking information or data together and on the web. So that's my answer. You can have other answers as well. What we also need to think about is the vocabulary for the terminology. So one thing that what we have done is the management of a crisis vocabulary. So that includes a lot of different concepts related to disasters. We also need somebody to actually observe the changes and somehow report about the changes. So for example, that there is some building now collapsed. And then we need also some other people to help us to categorize the different messages to events. Or we need some efficient machines to do so automatically, to find out interesting events, to categorize them, classify them, and then help us in the task. Of course, people are quite good in categorizing events, so we should somehow employ information managers. The crowd actually, I mean, like you did actually with the Usahidi platform. So there is a lot of people actually wanting to help. How do we provide tools that allow them to contribute? Now, still, this is a big question. Like, if we have these linked data technologies, and then on the other hand, we have well-established or identified information management queries, then how can linked data actually help in this kind of queries? Let's look at the queries. These were made by UNICEF in 2005. So the list is as follows. So what kind of disasters were there and when? This important question. How do we answer this question with the linked data? How many people were affected? How many were died, injured? Which humanitarian agency is currently working in the region? This is the, for example, in Haiti case, I mean, you have so many relief organizations suddenly there. I mean, people are making double work, right? So if you know who others are working there, then perhaps it's, I mean, it's a one way to collaborate or get the collaboration working. And then, of course, somehow to prioritize these different events. So, I mean, if we know that there's a building collapse here and there, or the other place there is a need for shelters, I mean, who we serve first. Who of you know about linked data? I mean, I know that few of you know, but who of you actually know linked data? Okay, so kind of half. So Sarah, what is linked data?
I've only had 4 hours.
You said that. Okay. Somebody else?
Sorry. Well, maybe better ask somebody else.
Okay. Who knows about linked data?
I can attempt this one for us.
Okay. I mean, in 20 seconds.
Tell me you're very unfair.
I know
in
it.
20 seconds, it's a way to map relationships on the internet in
Yeah.
a formal way which you can reason with.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Good.
There's more, but
Yeah, there's more. It's about exactly. It's about identifying things. What can we identify in such a Haiti case? What do we identify? We can identify messages, right? So this is one message. It has a certain URL, right? We can identify also things like classes, locations. Yeah, very good. We can identify categories like building collapse, right? So all sorts of things that we can identify. So let's zoom in. So I would say it's about certain technologies, right? So we have to use those technologies in order to actually make it linked data. It's about sharing. So whatever I do as using these technologies, I share it so that others can also use it, right? It's about efficient methods. So we are efficiently linking different things together. And it's about networks, hierarchies, different graph structures, and make it really explicit how concepts and instances are related together. So what does this mean in the case of Haiti data? So it means that when we publish the data, we say that, well, this is identifier for one message, right? Nice thing with this one is that if we make this kind of identifications, we can actually click it, right? We can send it by email to somebody. Hey, take a look at this message. And then that person can take a look at the message. He can read it and see where it was located and what time and so on, right? So we can use the information, but in addition, computer can also use it. So computer can just locate somehow this message on a map, right? So this is a big difference. If you give this this URI of this message to a computer, it can make this kind of small visualization out of it. So it's about affordances of information. So you have some information. What does that information afford? In this case, it affords putting it on a map. It also affords to put it on a timeline. It affords to put it on the concept hierarchy. So you see, it's a way to start solving some of the questions we had earlier. So what we made in our project, we worked with the Haiti data. So as I said, my student was 9 months there as an information manager, and via his contacts, we got a lot of data from Haiti via the Usahidi platform. And our task was to create a linked data version of the Usahidi Haiti data, and then show how we can actually simplify, test, and implement the semantic integration of crowdsourced information from Haiti. So this was the ideology. And of course, the bigger goal is to enable somehow to visualize and interact with the data, so that we could filter out all information that we don't want to have, only those pieces of information that we really need. So ideally, but this is yet to be evaluated and showed, ideally linked data would help us to actually find out some knowledge, some implicit knowledge in the data about disasters, and then by that support decision making. So what kind of categories we found from there? So these are the categories made by Usahidi people. So people categorized all the different data or different messages under these categories. So you see, compared to the visualization I showed, where we are working at the term level, here we start working at the concept level. So not all of these categories are mentioned in the messages, but these categories still help us to categorize the messages. For example, if we click unstable structure, we get all the messages that are about unstable structures, even though the unstable structure is, as itself, is not mentioned in the message. Now we have all the different categories. What we can start doing with the linked data approach is that we can put all of the messages on map. Not just one single message, but all of them. We can also allow for filtering. So we can see here, for example, that there are, out of all messages, there are 143 are about collapse structure that I just showed in the previous slide, right? So we can start understanding of what kind of events or what kind of things they have been happened based on the data that we saw from the Haiti, or observations coming from Haiti. What more, we can also use these categories. We can just simply click them. We can click collapse structure, and then we get only those messages that are about collapsed structures. Right. We can see where these messages are coming from. What is the coverage? So Port-au-Prince is clearly one of the biggest sources for information. This is also important. I mean, to try to understand what is the role of time in the setting. So we can say, let's take all the messages that are within 2 days from the earthquake, right? So then we click it, or first day, or many of them. or we can use it a slider. So let's take all the messages that are between 0 and 5 days from the start of the earthquake, or somewhere from the day 5 to day 7 and so on. I mean, of course, it's online, so actually the demonstrations I just showed, you can all go there, observechange.com/demos/linked-Haiti. So there we can click, for example, the collapse structure, and then we get only messages about collapse structures from Haiti, you see. What more, we also get all the categories that are co-occurring with this collapse structure message, right? So this helps, of course the promise here is that it helps to understand what kind of things are related to each other, right? If you have a collapse structure, are there some roads blocked? Well, it seems to be, you see. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I mean, from here you can start to find out evidence for this kind of things, or you can say that okay, let's give me only the messages about collapse structures from within first week, and then we can zoom in and see how and where these happen. Now, as I said, time is important in this kind of setting. Linked data allows, in this kind of case, us to be very explicit about time. So we can say where exactly the collapse structures happened. So as you see, during first day, not that many messages, but then second day, a lot of messages, and it continues. And perhaps decreases a bit. At least there are some changes in the trend. We can click any of the messages, and we can see the actual message there. So somebody is saying that over 100 UN personnel trapped in collapsed headquarters in Haiti, which is quite serious, right? So we see what kind of categories are used for this message, and then we see the actual message, and for understanding better how to deal with this information. Yeah, so I see the point here is that I think it's promising for emergency managers, but now the question still is,
I want one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but how to make it happen? How to enable people to actually use these kind of systems in emergency cases? One of the answers is that that we have to be very open about not just about the data, but about the vocabularies, about the terminologies for describing these kind of events. I mean, be the descriptions automatic based on some natural language processing techniques, or based on some human resources. So, well, we have shown one example about this. Yesterday we saw a nice presentation by from Disaster 2.0 project about the different vocabularies that are available there. One of the problems clearly there, as we discussed yesterday, as we saw yesterday, was that some of them are not really available. I mean, you can go there and you can query terms, you can kind of access them, but how do you use them as in a linked data descriptions? Not that easily, right? So with the management of a crisis vocabulary, we have tried to show how we think this kind of vocabulary publishing should ideally be made. So if you go there, this is also online, so observechange.com/moke/ns. If you go there, you can see all the different classes explicitly described. So you can see classes like collapse structure, and if you go to that class, then you can see a description of what is, in our view, the intended use of this term. So where to use it, and perhaps even where to not use it. So you have an identifier for the class, and then you have some hierarchy as well here. So this is a subclass of any infrastructure damage. So what is the use for this kind of hierarchies between concepts? Who is the first one? Who knows about hierarchies? Yeah, good. So why should we have this kind of hierarchies, subclasses of between different terms?
Well, it supports understanding what the instance term belongs to. So it
Yeah.
helps you understanding what's above it and what each instance is related to.
Yeah, exactly. And when do we need this kind of information?
Well,
Mm.
I would use it in crisis management to
Yeah.
understand if an instance is happening in different type of
Yeah,
concept.
yeah. But what is exactly the
If there's a term in a tweet, we can aggregate it and
aggregation? Exactly, that was the term I was looking for. I mean, exactly. I mean, you said it correctly, but I mean, aggregation was the term I want. So the point is to get a bigger picture, right? So to get a bigger picture of what exactly is happening, because I mean, if we get, if we get this kind of a lot of different terms, food distribution, help, need, water, distribution. I mean, somehow to be able to say that, well, distribution, I mean, food distribution is under distribution. So if we visualize it, we just say that a bigger bubble, this is about any distribution. And if we click on it, then perhaps we get a more specific picture of what exactly are the different kinds of distribution types we see in the messages. Food
Quite
distribution.
often subclass are category.
Yeah.
Category lists on maps.
Yeah.
Because it keeps us sane.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because we are absolutely exhausted. I mean, Willow and I were
Yeah.
running a deployment last night, and your brain stops.
Yeah.
Actually, just keeping the person trying to manage deployment, seeing what's going on without having 100 things at once. It's just mental capacity.
Exactly. So that's exactly the point. Like to help people to make a big picture and then help them to ask questions. I mean, this is just quickly from quite another field, but this is one example of what we have been doing. So just one big bubble, right? This is all the people in my university who have public profiles. So like a website, but you know, saying who they are and what they are. But now the question is that if you show this kind of aggregated number, it doesn't exceed the mental capability, right? Because I mean, you just see the circle, right? And it's just one number. And then you can start asking questions like, okay, how does this amount of people divide to different schools? And then if you click on it, boom, there you go. Then you get a bit more information. Okay, School of Science have 176 and School of Business 139, right? So it doesn't exhaust you immediately. You get some time to try to understand the big picture and then create new questions. Okay, now I'm interested in exactly about this thing. Like, okay, let's look at School of Science. What kind of departments they are and how many they are. They have how many of them have public profiles, right? So similarly here, instead of just using everything, we somehow can categorize different things. So that is the. I mean, it might look like okay, well, it's just terminology. There is a subclass of relationship, but it's actually very, very useful in this kind of cases. So one encouragement here or lessons learned here is that whatever vocabularies you are using or creating from scratch, please look at the existing ones and think if you could actually make subclass of relations to the existing ones. That would mean that if we could collect data from different emergency cases like Haiti, Boston, Japan tsunami, whatever, we could be able to aggregate all that information to different bubbles. Like we just, for example, we get one big circle. This is all the disasters in the world for the last 2 years. Then we click on it and then we can start seeing what kind of disasters there were and then start understanding about bigger ideas or picture about the specialties in different disasters. And also differences between different disasters. Like we saw earlier today, what is the big difference between Boston explosion yesterday and Haiti. So my argument here is that by making the information really explicit, we can not just intuitively see the differences, but really explicitly can compare the different cases. I mean, we can build this kind of visualizations and put all the disasters at the same time and then provide different categories for filtering out exactly certain types of categories from all the different disasters, right? So this is the management of crisis vocabulary. We have solid basis in there. So we took the Haiti as a use case. So we saw what kind of categories were used by the Usahidi people there. And now my student is in Kenya actually working for United Nations because there are the presidential elections, or they were a few months ago, and collecting data from there and trying to see how we should extend this vocabulary to be able to cover more different kinds of disasters.
If you need category lists.
Yeah, category
I've
lists.
built up the whole list, trying
Yeah.
to do this for the last couple of years, so
Yeah,
please.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Please send it to me. Send them to me. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is exactly why I'm interested in giving this kind of talks, because I mean, then we always find out interesting connections. People have actually some data, and I gave one presentation about Haiti in my own university 2 months ago, and they had been a project that had been seeking for data for 2 years already. They had been playing with simulated data. I said, hey, please stop. I mean, you cannot. I mean, if you look at the different kinds of messages we get from real cases, how would we simulate this kind of messages? I wouldn't be able to do it. I speak French, but I mean still simulating to making all the messages in French and then in English and simulating all the addresses, the way people talk, it would be, I think, just impossible. So management of crisis vocabulary. One important thing, like I said, is whenever we are producing something, be it vocabularies or data, start thinking about actually publishing it. Like we talked yesterday over the dinner, there are quite a few data sets about disasters made over past few years. But if as a researcher or coming from company world, if you want to find out those data sets, it's not so easy anymore. Where do we find a list of all the different data sets about different disasters? I mean, you have started to, yeah, exactly. You have started to list them under CCAN or Data Hub, but I mean, still, how many there are? 20, perhaps? No, exactly.
More than that.
Exactly. So, but
Hundreds.
okay, more than that, hundreds. Okay, very good. So that's very important to start collecting these, and also at the same time vocabularies, and try to understand how these can be somehow compared. I mean, how do we compare different data sets? If they are available as linked data, I think that's pretty good. But even if they are available as comma separated values or anything, Excel sheets, that's already something. Yeah, and thanks. About the data, if you look at what we have done, linkedscience.org/data/linked-HT. So we have provided all the HT data as linked data, so you can just go there and you can click one of the example messages. You can get all the messages. You can run a SPARQL query and get all the messages. Or if you send me an email, I can send all the data by email. We are just adding it to Data Hub in a few weeks, so you will find it there from there as well. All right. Would you have any questions?